This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today it's Monday. It's October 21st, 2024. Thank you for joining us on thetruthcentral.com. You can follow me on X at CorsiJerome1 and in Substack, JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. To begin with, let's review the election and God's Five Stones. We're posting new information there on the algorithms. This week, I think we'll have the ability to post on New Jersey, in which algorithms have been found, and also Texas. We're waiting on some go-ahead with permission to publish it, but the algorithms have been found in Texas as well. So the list of states in which these algorithms, as secret coding has been found, is expanding. We have now Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, two of the border battleground states that we found the algorithm in both of those, as well as New York and New Jersey, Ohio. We're going to add Texas to the list. We have Hawaii, and we're looking at Arizona right now, and Georgia. So the list of the algorithm seems to have been placed very generally throughout the different states. And my guess is we're going to find it in just about every state, certainly every one that the Democrats care about. These algorithms are intelligence quality, intelligence grade, intelligence agency grade. And I suspect the CIA is involved in this. I suspect that we have here the CIA deciding not just to steal elections overseas, but to steal them in the United States. And it's a pretty frightening idea to think of the extent to which the CIA is in control. Earlier this year, I published this book on JFK, assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. I called it The Final Analysis, with the David Mantik's work showing the X-rays. David Mantik is a radiation oncologist. He's looked at the X-rays of the Kennedy assassination. The skull X-rays, there's 3 of them in the archives, and they are all 3 forged to mask evidence of frontal shots. There's clear evidence of 2 frontal shots. Jack Kennedy was shot from the front and from the rear in a crossfire. And the CIA has been lying to us for 61 years. This book gives you forensic evidence to establish that fact. Again, these are facts. These are not speculations. It's the same with finding the algorithms in the databases of the state boards of election. Once the algorithm's been found, it's mathematics. It's there. You show it's there, and you can see how the numbers of the state IDs are arranged according to the algorithm, not according to the date of registration. This is fundamental to the scheme. We also, last week, were able to develop that according to this decision, which I have right here from it was a U.S. District Court decision, and it was rendered by a judge in District Court of Arizona. His name was Michael Liberty. And what he established was that any of the Board of Supervisors who has a objection in a county that the state election has some problems to it, is corrupt, or there's voter fraud, the supervisors have the authority to not certify the election. So this means that in the battleground states, especially where there's algorithms, I'll be publishing an article here in American Thinker on this week, hopefully, and I'll also be publishing it on Gateway Pundit, is that the supervisors can block the certification of an election. And if there's an algorithm in the database, that alone is enough reason for, in any of these states that are battleground states, and we've certainly found now Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. I think we'll find Arizona as well. We may find Georgia with algorithms. Just the fact of the algorithm being in place, which could be used to steal votes in a mail ballot scheme. Right there is the article that I had in Gateway Pundit on it, which is a very important article. That article really says that a judge, Fulton County's judge, which said that you have to certify the election. Well, that's ridiculous, because a district court judge opinion directly challenges that and says no, that the supervisors have the authority to wave the red flag and stop the counting. And by the way, this year, instead of waiting until the states certify to challenge elections on voter fraud, if we detect it, we need to do it before the election is certified, because a certified election is very difficult to overturn in the courts. But challenging with the Board of Supervisors can be done as an administrative procedure. That can be done within the election structure. That's why these states like Georgia are wanting to force the supervisors to certify, because part of the stealing scheme of mail-in ballots is a rush to certify the election. Because once the fraud is certified, it's hard to reverse. And then they can start running their narratives from the CIA that the election was the best ever and it was honest and fair, even though you don't believe your lying eyes when you see all these ballots coming around and jammed through the machine for mail-in and not looked at to see if they have correct signatures on them or any signatures on them, whether they were folded and mailed or not, whether they just run through the machines. Again, the mainstream media lying in being paid to lie by the CIA shows the extent to which our country has now gotten in the control of these bureaucrats who are unelected. And as such, they are uncontrollable and they are authoritarian. These are all major issues. All right, now we're also in the process of publishing Archbishop Vigano's book on excommunication. He was excommunicated by Pope Francis, and Post Hill Press. I'm now an acquiring editor in Post Hill Press. I can have the ability to pick and acquire books and work with the authors to develop the books. And Archbishop Vigano has submitted one to us called J'accuse, I accuse, in French. There's Archbishop Vigano. And we'll be showing you the book here this week as it goes into press. But it'll be published before the election. It's a very strong statement against Pope Francis and against the woke insanity that we're experiencing in this neo-Marxism that has swept the country. And by the way, I think the neo-Marxism has run its course. I think people are sick and tired of having their children told in the public schools that they are boys or girls or whatever they are, or they can be, some ancient animal as their identity and sex, not their sex, but their gender. These insane concepts, which are schizophrenic. And Archbishop Vigano has been a voice of clarity in this moral debate, stressing how as we drift from God, we drift into paganism, Satanism, and insanity. And it's time we stop. I can't get over watching Kamala hackle. I mean, I don't know if she's possessed by some demon or something, but there's something within her that thinks everything she says is hilarious. I guess the demon inside her knows that it's all lies and is just laughing at how she seems to be getting away with it. I don't think she's going to be getting away with it for long. I think the American people are on to what the Democrats have done to this country. And I think I think we're sick and tired of it. Certainly I am. Okay, I want to shift grounds now to go to the Middle East, because I think this is going to be a critical week in the Middle East. I think this is the week that we're going to see Israel attacking Iran. Israel upped the war, intensified it with Hezbollah in Lebanon over the weekend. The Israeli Defense Force bombed a financial institution that is the financial arm of Hezbollah. And it was right close to Lebanon's only international airport. And Israel had threatened to launch an attack on this institution. And this was a day after a drone targeted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's private residence. He and his wife weren't there at the time, but Netanyahu issued a statement saying the attempt by Iran's proxy Hezbollah to assassinate me and my wife today was a grave mistake. And Sunday night, rockets hit Beirut. The Israeli forces were targeting this bank, and they were trying to destroy this bank. And they probably did a pretty good job of it. That they felt that this bank was directly funding Hezbollah's terror activities, including purchasing weapons and making payments to operatives. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, said the Iran-backed U.S. and Israeli designated terrorist group had billions of dollars stored in its branches across Lebanon, including money that was directly held under the name of the terrorist organization. So the IDF hit these targets in this bank in Beirut and in southern Lebanon that goes deep into Lebanese territory. And the Israelis now, I think, are clearly going to take over not only the Gaza, but they're going to make sure they destroy Hezbollah. So they go after Hamas and Hezbollah. Of course, we're now sending over Blinken and trying to say to reduce the tension, let's have a ceasefire. The Biden-Harris regime does not want Israel to defend itself. They want to make sure that they even tried to block, the assassination attempt on the mastermind who had planned the October 7th massacre. The Israelis dispatched him to hell last week. So Blinken's headed over there. Blinken will take his guitar and play in a rock club and say that we have to end the war. Well, meanwhile, I think Israelis have decided now they've gotten more attacks, more concerted attacks on Hamas in Gaza. They are going after Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they will soon, I think this week, go after Iran with a massive attack. I want to give you the summation of what's happening in the Middle East here in about a couple of minutes, just a short summary of it. There's the 5-minute drill on what's going on in the Middle East. Israel's been an existential threat since it was created in 1948. And the state of Israel has fought numerous wars in order to preserve its integrity as a Jewish state. And the hatred of Israel has grown and intensified with Iran having been taken over in 1979 by Ayatollah Khomeini with a radical revolution. This was a radical Islamic revolution that was a combination of Marxism and anti-Americanism and Islam. So we began to see hostages taken under Jimmy Carter in Iran for 444 days. That ushered in the presidency of Ronald Reagan. Take a look at the Middle East. You can see that Israel is such a small country. In a map like this, it's barely recognizable. But when you deal with Iraq has largely been neutralized now after Saddam Hussein is gone, and Iraq is a divided country, part Sunni, part Shiite. Iran is completely Shiite, and they are a bizarre sect of Islam that believes that this member of the family of the Ayatollah, this little boy, this Mahdi, Mahdi, went down a well hundreds of years ago into hiding. And when he comes out of the well, there'll be a worldwide apocalypse, and Shiite Islam will triumph all over the world. Shiites believe that the family of the Prophet Muhammad should be the controller of Islam, whereas the Sunnis, Saudi Arabia, feel that it should be the caliphate. It should be civilian control. Saudi Arabia is clearly one of the largest countries and is also not particularly friendly with Iran. If Iran were to get rid of the United States and Israel, it would next turn on Saudi Arabia. That's the ultimate conflict in Islam, is between Shiite and Sunni. But at the moment, after this October 7th attack, Hamas is being uprooted and destroyed systematically in Gaza. And I think the Israelis are doing a good job of really going after the leadership. I think the Israelis will occupy the entire Gaza, maybe even depopulate it for a while. We'll go after these tunnels that have been built underneath Gaza that permit the movement of troops and the fortification of the Gaza in a way that has been funded again by Iran, with weapons coming in through Egypt. Hezbollah in Lebanon, to the north of Israel, has fought any number of attacks, and Hezbollah was established by this Nasrallah, who's also been recently killed, who is a friend of Ayatollah Khomeini. Israel's effectively, Nasrallah and others are getting rid of the leadership of these groups. And the next target after Iran attacked Israel is Iran. And I think there'll be a massive attack on Iran by Israel, possibly this week. If it is, it'll be destabilizing. It'll be an October surprise before the election. What impact will it have? I think largely the United States supports Israel, except for the Democrats who have gone Marxist, hate America, and you'll see it in the universities, they support Hamas. The Jewish vote is, I think, being lost to the Democrats, as I think the Democrats are losing the blacks and the Hispanics. Despite bringing in all these immigrants and trying to get them to vote, I think the American people are sick and tired of the Democrats winning elections by stealing. And these algorithms have been in place since at least 2007. And I'm continuing to question how many people in the House of Representatives and the Senate have been elected by the algorithms and not by the people. Could be quite a few. Democrats seem to me to have far more representation in Congress than their strength in the popular vote. So as we enter the final days here before the election, 2 weeks, we're going to see a lot more intensification of conflict. And I think it's going to be, the key conflict is going to be in the Middle East. I don't think that Netanyahu is going to wait until after the presidential election to attack Iran. I think he's on his own timetable. And I don't think he's being influenced by the United States all that much at the moment. Israel's seeing this as an existential moment, a time where they can settle once, maybe not for all, but for certainly a significant period of time, to diminish the impact of these terrorist groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Revolutionary Guard in Iran. And Netanyahu, I think, is determined to carry out this mission. They've done everything they could to destroy Netanyahu, like they tried to destroy Trump, and yet he's remained in control of the country. He's back as prime minister, and he's now leading the war effort. And so I think what we're going to see in the next bit of time here is Iran significantly weakened. I think that Israel will try to kill the mullahs, the ayatollahs. They'll try to destroy the nuclear sites, and they will do massive damage, perhaps on the infrastructure of Iran. Iran will be reduced. If Israel has its way, I think it'll be reduced in power for a long time. The United States, Obama, Biden have propped up Iran with money. We've reduced the sanctions. We've allowed Iran to continue its oil business and resume its oil business. Iran now has raked in billions of dollars. Look for some major changes in the Middle East between now and the election. That's kind of the summary, and it's an historic moment at the Middle East. And what happens in the next 30 days is going to change the history for the foreseeable future. And if Israel wins, it could mean that we have an opportunity again for peace, especially if Donald Trump comes back in and resumes the Abraham Accords, trying to get the Muslim countries surrounding Israel to realize that the best solution is to make peace with Israel, to allow Israel to survive, and to let the region flourish, which Israel is capable of doing together with these Muslim countries. Okay, let's move on to a couple more stories to cover today. You're seeing here the BRICS meeting is coming up now. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization met last week in Istanbul, in Pakistan, and China leads that. They're making some major moves there. It's also that just precedes the BRICS meeting. The BRICS are the Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And that has now become an expanded organization that has included a number of the countries in the Middle East, including the oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia. The key issue that's going to be decided here next week at this meeting is whether or not the BRICS nations are going to undertake the launch of a gold-backed currency. If they do, they'll have a significant challenge to the United States dollar. And our dollar has never been in this kind of a weakened position with the amount of debt that we've accumulated. We're now $35 trillion in debt, and our debt service annually is $1 trillion. These are levels that are just not sustainable. And I'm going to be doing a lot more writing here about the BRIC nations, because I think that the reconfigurations of global politics means we're in a multipolar world. And this Russia-China alliance, for a while, is going to be a counterbalance to the United States. Ultimately, I think Russia and China have their own independent interests as nation states, and we'll enter into a world where there are three major powers: Russia, the United States, and China. At the moment, the United States dominates both as an economy, but China is rapidly overtaking us as the largest economy in the world. We've thrown away a lot of our birthright, both in terms of our rights, the constitutional rights, including all this massive censorship. If Donald Trump does come on, he's going to have to deal with the agencies. He's going to have to deal with the bureaucracy. And my goal would be to fire by agency, get rid of the Department of Education, get rid of all these departments. We don't need them. They overregulate and they suppress economic activity. But what you're going to see increasingly is that the economic development of the BRICS nations are going to bring a number of countries into another tier of economic citizenship, which is not quite first-class citizenship, but it certainly is a move out of the underdeveloped world into a more developed world. And I think it's headed there very rapidly. Even China and Russia in some ways are, compared to the United States, not fully modern industrial states. They have lots of parts of them that are both still very rural and very peasant. And that's going to change over the next 50 years. I expect that we will be into this multipolar world now for quite a long time, and I hope it will be stable, not produce nuclear war. The Democrats seem to be on a path of destruction. They're running, their whole agenda right now is a death cult. They're running, I listened to all of them, the commercials they're running. They're trying to scare women that you won't be able to get an abortion. That there'll be, we have to have the rights of a woman to control her own body and her own health. Well, that's a very nice term for killing babies. And I think that one of the things we've done as a nation spiritually is we've been too enthusiastic about abortion. Only God can give life. Instead of killing life in the womb, butchering it and selling the body parts of the fetus for money, we should be fostering life, finding a way to care for these children when they're born. Breaking up of the American family has been one of the great tragedies of the last 50 years. It was one of the intentional ideas of the communists. If Chris will put up one of my other books, which I think explain extremely well what's going on right here, is the book I wrote on neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. And we're headed right now into the anarchy phase of that equation. But the neo-Marxism came about after the workers of the world failed to unite against capitalism in 1848, and gradually Marxism turned into an attack on the capitalist culture, on work. And it glorified the sexual revolution, has now led to this sexual insanity, transgenderism, and all the other absurdities we're faced with. Again, all of this is a breakup of the American family, the children not being raised by a mother and a father, and the moral education of children being neglected, as people are saying they don't believe in God. We need to bring God back into our lives, or we're going to have more chaos. The economics, I think, are going to continue to be stable until we get past the election. But continue to watch this. I've seen now gold and silver this weekend have gone to a new threshold. Gold is now trading at $2,700.38. I mean, we're getting to the point where, since I've been talking about gold and silver, you'd have made $1,000 an ounce if you listened to me, and at least with your IRAs and your 401ks. We're going to develop a program here to move some IRAs and 401ks into gold and silver. You do it with a self-directed IRA, and Swiss America has a program that works and is reliable and safe. Silver is now at $34 an ounce. And I think actually silver is going to appreciate as a percentage more rapidly than gold because it's lower price. So it's going to be easier for silver to hit, twice $34. $70 would be achievable much faster than hitting to over $4,000, which is what would have to happen if gold were to have doubled in this coming crisis. Stock market is all-time highs, but it's a bubble. It won't last. As soon as Donald Trump is elected, if he does win, you can count on there being an international banking crash and crisis. I see yesterday over the weekend that another bank has closed doors, and we're beginning to see again bank closings, which are going to accelerate. We have too much debt and it's not able to be paid, including too much consumer debt. Too many people are living on their credit cards. So if you'll go to Swiss America, on our website, we've got a lot. You can get a copy of this free book, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. The gold rush has already started and the crash is in the works. The number is 1-800-519-6268. Call and get a copy of this book. It's free. 1-800-519-6268. 1-800-519-6268. Also, take a look at all the things we have on. There's many different newsletters. The Secret War on Cash, coming out with the digital dollar. That's in the works. Federal Reserve's ready to have currency that's electronic, and you won't be able to, your social credit score will determine your access to money. We have the Secret War on Cash exposed from the on the homepage, and you can click to it, fill out that form, and Swiss America will send you the book electronically. Also, the Walking Liberty $50 offer, which is these Walking Liberty $50 coins, which are very high content of silver, and you can purchase them for really 250 of them for what they're worth in silver. It's a lost leader for Swiss America, and I would encourage everybody to take advantage of it. I encourage everybody to start thinking about adding precious metals to your investment portfolio if you haven't already done so. Because when your stock market crashes, you lose 10,000 points on the Dow, which could happen. It's going to take a long time for that to recover. It's not going to take very long for it to crash, but it will take a long time for it to recover. So what I'm watching this week is as the election gets going, we start early voting. I think the early voting is going very strongly for Trump. I think one of the answers to stopping the Democrats from stealing is a massive vote for Trump. That way it'll be hard for the Democrats to steal as much as they have to steal in order to succeed. I make the steal apparent if it's tried. Secondly, I think we're going to see an intensification of the war in the Middle East. I think Zelensky will be pushing for more arms in Ukraine and talking about he wants to have a final offensive. The Ukraine's a lost war, and it needs to stop. We need to quit pushing Russia to the point where Russia's contemplating using nuclear weapons. And if Zelensky gets these longer range missiles and starts hitting Russia more internally, you'll see nuclear weapons used by Russia. We're at that point. I don't think we've ever been at a more dangerous point economically and politically in my life. But again, we'll get through it. Chris, you want to do any comments on what we've covered today before we wrap up?
Well, you're talking about the conflicts rising, and honestly, a lot of these nations, the BRICS nations, China, Russia, obviously, Iran, they know they have a very short window left at this point before a likely Trump victory, unless, of course, the Democrats really do their best when it comes to the cheating. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for them. There are going to be a lot of people coming in droves to vote for Donald Trump, and I do believe that the nations are going to call for the nations are going to kind of pounce or try to pounce beforehand. Having said that, I still believe the Democrats might throw the election. They have the ability, like you said, right here with these algorithms. They might throw the election and set their sights on 2026.
I think they're going to go for the down election.
Yes,
ballots. They're going to go for the House and Senate.
That's true too. Yes,
and I'm going
that's where the real power is.
Well, that's increasingly what they want to control. They can block legislation because if Trump gets into power, they'll try the resistance again. We'll have 4 years of resistance.
That'll be
well, I don't know if the country's really prepared to put up with it again. We've seen this play, and it was not pretty when it was first run. I've had all the Black Lives Matter and Antifa I could take in a lifetime.
Yes.
And now we've got Venezuelan gangs armed, taking over apartment buildings. And, the country's out of control with the Democrats. The Democrats' whole agenda has been chaos. It's Satanism.
It's been it basically that's what they're trying to push on people. And they're trying to make it hip, by the way. Now, have you seen what was going on the last couple of weeks? The Democrats doing the obligatory last-ditch effort by rolling out the celebrities. But they're still saying dumb things. Like Lizzo, the pop star Lizzo says, "Oh, if Kamala," they're saying if Kamala Harris gets elected, then the whole nation's going to turn into Detroit, and the crowd's cheering, and she's talking about how great it would be to turn into Detroit, not realizing, I mean, look, we understand Detroit's the home of great music and rock and roll, but there are places around. There are places you just can't walk anymore in Detroit.
Mm.
I mean, I've
There's
heard.
whole neighborhoods that don't exist anymore. I mean, the houses are abandoned and there's vacant lots all over the place. I don't know what Detroit's a mess.
Yeah, there are places that nobody can go. I did hear two sports casters or sports, I guess, yeah, sportscasters, sports talk hosts that were on WFAN a long time ago. It's like a bunch of years ago, discussing how it was difficult to walk from Comerica Park to any hotel because
Right.
you're taking your life into your hands.
It's ridiculous. And again, the cities are out of control and they're going to get more out of control.
Yes.
At any rate, I'm looking forward to the Democrats losing and losing massively. And that can be accomplished with people getting out to vote.
Right. Oh, one more thing. Did you the Venezuelan gang story? It's getting worse. It's expanding. We had Times Square. We had an issue in Times Square. Now San Antonio, Texas. But what do the Democrats say? All lies. The news media. Oh, that's not happening.
Yeah, right. Baghdad Bob.
Right.
Okay, Chris. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. It's going to be tough times. We're going to have a judgment of God because we've allowed this country to drift from God's ways, God's morals, into insanity. But it's recoverable. Many times in past history, reading Jeremiah in the Bible over the weekend and talking about the Babylonian captivity. Well, God will punish us in due course for having drifted from his ways. But at the same time, there's an enormous number of people who support God, will rally to defend God, and I plan to be in that group. It's Dr. Jerome Corsi. I encourage everybody in the spirit of 7:14 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles 7:14. Get on your knees and repent. We can, if we do, God will hear our prayer and heal our land. But we need healing. Dr. Jerome Corsi. This is Monday. It's October 21st, 2024. We're approaching the election here. The president, not the midterm, but the presidential election, which is just around the corner on November 5th. We'll be back doing podcasts every weekday. Thank you for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow. God bless.